A Quiet Place Day One is written and directed by Michael Sarnowski. It stars Joseph Quinn and Lupita Nyong'o, and Lupita Nyong'o plays a girl who has cancer, and she has been given years, months, weeks, days, hours. At any point now, she could die. And she plays this character who is in New York City during day one of the invasion of the A Quiet Place universe. Now, you guys know in the A Quiet Place universe, you had the events that happened with John Krasinski, Emily Blunt, and their family, and everything that happened there. Then we move on to A Quiet Place 2, which had Emily Blunt and Cillian Murphy dealing with the events of that film. And now you have A Quiet Place Day One, which follows the events of New York City under attack on day one. But as you know, the Quiet Place universe movies haven't been about guns and fighting. They're primarily about a human element, and this movie tries to stick to that because while this girl in New York City is dealing with the alien invasion, all that really matters to her is getting to a certain pizza place that her father used to take her. He died many years previous to the same illness that she currently has, and so even though there's an alien invasion going on, even though you got to be so quiet or you will die, she is on a mission with her cat and then eventually Joseph Quinn's character to make it to a pizza place to have one more slice of pizza before she dies, either from her illness or from the alien invasion. Now, if that sounds like an interesting movie to you, you should check this movie out. It is playing in theaters now. I had a good time watching this movie. Didn't love it. We'll get into my positives and some of my negatives. My first positive for this movie is getting to see the alien invasion of the A Quiet Place universe on a big scale like New York City. We've seen the alien invasion in a small town because that's where it picks up with John Krasinski and Emily Blunt in A Quiet Place 2 at the very beginning. So we've seen the day one events from a small town point of view. Like, yeah, it would be crazy. There's these aliens all going around. But what would it be like in a big city where you've got car alarms going off all the time? You've got security system, backup generators. You've got all this stuff going off all the time. There'd be so much noise as it is. And then all the people have to try and be quiet. And so this movie answers that question. What would it be like in that intense situation in downtown New York City? And it answers it beautifully. I loved the destruction on day one, watching all the people go into a panic, but I loved the aftermath the next day where Lupita Nyong'o's character wanders out into the street very quietly, trying to make her way to that pizza shop. But when she wanders out into the street, it looks like it's snowing because of all of the damage that's been done, all the soot in the air, all of the buildings falling apart. Kind of looks like the events after 9/11. Yes, I'm old enough to remember the events after 9/11. So I thought that the destruction aftermath of the attack in New York City was done so damn well. So I loved the look of the city before and after. You got this contrast of how beautiful downtown New York City looked, but then you got the look of how destroyed and burned down New York City looked after this just a couple days of an alien invasion. My other positive for this movie is a very tight hour and 40-minute runtime. And that's a theme these days because movies blow themselves up to 2.5, 3, sometimes 4 hours in the theater, and that gets way too long. You just feel yourself looking at your watch way too many times. But this movie had maybe 10 minutes left before I looked at my watch at all in this film. It really locks you in, and it does a good job of getting in, telling the story they want to tell, and then getting out. So I'm praising this movie for the runtime because an hour and 40 minutes was a perfect runtime for the story they were trying to tell, because this isn't a wide-scale universe attack story, which I thought it was going to be. We'll get into my negatives here in a minute. But keeping on the positives, it really does center around that one story, Lupita Nyong'o's story, her own personal story in New York City, and all the events surrounding her on that day and a couple days after that day one attack. And I thought that that was done really well. I thought that the runtime focused in what they needed to show you. They didn't give you a bunch of extra stuff that you didn't need to see. You just saw what you needed to for this one contained story. And I liked that. But that'll lead me to my negatives. My first one is that the emotional beats in this movie, while they are heavy, they didn't really work for me. And what I mean by that is that you've got a great performance out of Lupita Nyong'o and a great performance out of Joseph Quinn, but their emotional connection isn't a love story. It's more of a caring human element of this movie. And unfortunately, I just didn't feel that emotional connection with them. Like, I just felt like I didn't live with them long enough in this film to really have an emotional connection. You don't see Joseph Quinn's character till maybe halfway through the film, and he just happens to be in the same area as Lupita Nyong'o's character, and then they happen to get together, and then they happen to get to the same places together, and they happen to make it alive, where so many people just get taken out by these aliens, but these two are constantly making it through these very stressful, tense situations, and I just didn't buy it. I didn't buy the emotional connection. And here's the thing. I understand that I bought into the emotional connection with John Krasinski and Emily Blunt right off the bat in A Quiet Place. They were able to hook me, and I was like, wow, I'm invested in these characters. But at no point in this movie did I really feel invested in the characters I was watching, so there was no emotional appeal. My next negative is a bit of a gripe, and I understand that. And it's one of those things where while I was watching the movie, it irritated me for a second, and then I moved on. But I feel like I still have to mention it, and that's that the characters in this movie, every character in this movie, figures out that you have to be quiet almost immediately. And I know you're the audience, you've already seen A Quiet Place, you've already seen A Quiet Place 2, so you know that you have to be quiet. And so the movie kind of leans on that. It needs you to understand that all these characters have to be quiet in order to survive. Because I'm talking about a couple hours into the invasion, everybody's quiet. Now I understand maybe when you're hiding, but I mean, characters are flashing flashlights at the monsters, and they know they can't be seen. And it's like, you've had merely hours to deal with this, and yet you already know they have no visibility and they only deal with sound. And so we got to be really quiet. And so it's sort of like, guys, you know about these characters. We got to get through this hour 40 runtime, so we got to kind of move on. And again, I appreciate the runtime, but you left out sort of any sort of build toward the characters figuring out these things are attracted to sound. Yes, sound will attract anything unless the thing is deaf, but how could they have known they were blind automatically? And so that bothered me. Again, it's something I could look past. It's sort of what the director, who was the writer as well, so he really just was like, guys, we're in the Quiet Place universe. Don't gripe about this. You already know. But the characters shouldn't know, and it does bother me. And the more it sits with me, the less it becomes a gripe and more it becomes a full negative. So I'll move on. My next negative, it's going to seem like a bit of a gripe again, but I was so irritated with that damn cat throughout this movie. Listen, they were trying to build an emotional connection, and that's basically what this movie is, like a human emotional connection. But there are some dumb choices that this cat makes throughout the film that, honestly, I'd have left it behind. And I have no hate in my heart toward cats. Enjoy cats. I can't believe I have to even say that. But the point I'm making here is that this cat in this film is annoying, to the point where this cat will jump and create a big loud noise to give you a jump scare in the theater, and the character's like, oh, it's just the cat. And I'm like, well, where are the monsters? He just created a noise. But because the cat created the noise, no big deal. Or the cat will get itself into a really bad predicament, and one of the characters will be like, gotta save this cat. And so they'll climb up this beam and try to save the cat, and a monster will almost kill them. I'm like, was that worth it? Was it worth it? Because that cat went and found you, and then you decided, well, wait, if he runs away, he won't be able to find me again. He just found you. If the cat wants to go find you again, he'll go find you again. So that bothered me. Again, maybe it's a bit of a gripe, but I felt like the cat was pushing it. Like at one point, they throw the cat in a bag and they jump into a sewer drain and the water takes them away. I've been around cats all my life. That cat would have been pissed and run away a long time ago. I don't care how loyal that cat seemed to be. There's no way it would have stuck around after that. And so there were just some things where they were like, but people like cats. People are going to root for this movie because the cat. So people will be fine with it. No, that cat would have left a long time ago. Or personally, I would have abandoned it a long time ago because it kept causing tense situations for the viewer versus creating good situations overall.
You know what happened? I bet it flattened itself out. Went right through a seam in your wall.
I don't think there's anything in the laws of nature that would support that.
Cats do not abide by the laws of nature, right? You don't know shit about it.
We're still gonna...
My last gripe before I get into my big negative that I'm saving for the end, my last gripe for this film is not having John Krasinski, Emily Blunt, or Cillian Murphy reprise their characters in any capacity. And that's a bit of a downer for me because I thought all three of those people carried the first two movies so well. So even a quick nod to them, something about them, maybe meeting up with one of them at the end to create some connective tissue would have been nice. They do have connective tissue with the guy from the island in the second movie. Don't know the actor's name. Not going to look it up now, but you get the idea. They do have a little connective tissue. We're like, I've seen that guy in this universe before. But wouldn't it have been better to show one of the three main characters from the first two movies? Maybe not. Maybe that would have been too on the nose. I don't know. Maybe they were trying to have too much connective tissue. That's why I threw this in the gripe category. I'll leave it alone. It's just personally something I thought of when I was watching this movie. Like, there couldn't be one just link to them at any point in this movie. No, none. Okay, fine. So moving on, I'm done with my gripes. I have one negative left, and that is there's so much retread of things we've already seen in the A Quiet Place universe, and there's zero world building. Like, I say zero, there's like maybe a little, because at one point the monsters are breaking open this egg-looking structure and eating whatever's inside, but you never know what that is. They never delve into any more than that. You get zero information on these monsters. You get zero information at all. Now here's the thing, I get it. The movie's called Day One, so hey, nobody knows anything about these monsters. Well, they figured out the quiet thing really fast. Why couldn't we get a little bit of a glimpse as to why they're attacking our universe? Why can't we get a little bit of a glimpse as to where they came from, why they're here, what they're doing? We don't get any of that in this movie, and so you get zero world building at all. You just get, hey, this is A Quiet Place on day one. Here's a self-contained story of New York City, and while you might not have asked for this, this is what you're going to get, and you're not going to get any more than that. And that was so disappointing, because I felt like they could have taken this time to say, okay, on day one, we are going to learn more about these monsters. We're going to learn why they attacked Earth. We're going to learn where they came from. Are they just fleeing their home planet? When they crash into Earth, they're like, hey, we're the alphas now. What is the deal with these monsters? I kind of feel like Jerry Seinfeld when I say that. But what's the deal with them? Why are they attacking Earth? And you get none of that. You get zero of that. You get zero world building. You just get a self-contained story in New York City. And not to say that that's bad, but it just wasn't what I wanted out of A Quiet Place. I wanted something different. I wanted to feel like I was getting new information, and I got nothing. Overall, I thought this was a big step down from the first two films. At least the first two films had a through line. They had like a connective tissue, and there was a reason things were happening in those movies. You started with this family. You learned a little about what was going on, John Krasinski, the work he was doing, and then they found a way to defeat these things, and so they started to enact that plan, but there's still alien monsters everywhere, and they have to get that message out to people that, hey, these monsters are out there. And so I liked that through line they had. This being more of a self-contained story within New York City, I don't know who was asking for that. It was fine. And that's kind of how I feel about this movie. It's just, well, it was fine. And that's been a lot of 2024 so far, unfortunately. But guys, those are just my opinions, because that's my review for A Quiet Place Day 1. Have you had a chance to see it yet? If you have, let me know in the comment section down below what you think, where we agree or disagree. Maybe you loved it, maybe you hated it. I'm not at either one of those places. Yet again, it's another 2024 movie that's right down the middle. But with that said though, guys, if you like this review and you want to watch more, don't forget to hit that like button, because it helps the video, it helps the channel, and it helps me right here. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time. All right, guys, we got to the end of my A Quiet Place review, and I just want something more out of this year. I don't know what it is with 2024. We got some big blockbusters that got pushed into this year, and two of them I just watched back to back with The Bike Riders and A Quiet Place, and both of them felt like they were very mid. And I hate using that term, but that's how they felt. But with that said though, guys, if you like this review and I want to watch more, well, I've got all of my horror movie reviews right there, and I've got all of my 2024 movie reviews right there.